parents and coaches. Do you wish you had a safe social media platform for your youth athletes? Fortunately for you, there's a revolutionary new app that helps with just that. Introducing Small Player, Big Play. Small Player Big Play app provides young athletes, parents, and coaches a user-friendly sports social media platform. The app allows users to connect with friends, make new friends, create groups, text, chat, and post pictures and videos of you and your teammates participating in your favorite sport or activity. To begin, users can simply download and sign up for the app using an email account. Younger users have the ability to sign up using their smartphone and a parent's email address. From there, users can begin to interact and engage with other users of the app. Small Player Big Play app also gives users the ability to live stream full games and events. You can live stream your event so that friends, family, or anyone in the world can see you in action. Users can also share posts from the app to their other social media accounts like Facebook and Twitter. What are you waiting for? Get in the game and share your love of sports with the world. Download the Small Player Big Play app today.
You're listening to the Bulldog Hour, getting you inside the Wilson football program with weekly game previews, recaps, highlights, and interviews. Now, here are your hosts, Joe Mays and Justin Raffoff.
Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome back to the Bulldog Hour. I'm one of your hosts, Joe Mays, and sitting across from me, as always, is my co-host, Justin Raffoff.
Yeah, it's good to be here, and man, after week one, I wasn't sure we were going to get. I wasn't sure exactly what to expect for the rest of the season, and certainly turned it around, and had a good run there.
Yeah, there was times throughout. We started season 6 of this show way back in February. We kicked it off in a big way with Chad Henne, who we're going to see a little bit more from in just a little bit.
Yeah.
Had a performance today in the NFL, and we're going to show video and pictures from that. That kicked us off in February. Then things kind of came crashing down.
Not just for the Bulldog Hour.
No, for everything, literally. In the entire world. 2020.
So, got to go.
That's not just something that's happening here. But, it was interesting. We pressed on. We did a spring show and a summer show. And then our normal stuff in August was all up in the air because crazy stuff was happening related to COVID and school and everything.
And that hasn't changed.
Not at all. No, not at all. No changes there. And, here we are at the end of 6 regular season games for the Bulldogs. They sit at 5-1 after a win over Hempfield Friday night. 27-12, come from behind victory, actually. After going down 9-0, they outscored Hempfield 27-3 the rest of the way. And we'll get into that. We will have highlights, statistics, our player of the game, and we'll talk about the victory over Hempfield, which clinched the outright section championship for the Bulldogs.
Been a few years.
Yeah, last one was in 2016. Obviously, we shared it 3 ways in 2018, but first outright section championship since 2016. So first off, congratulations to the players and the coaching staff for winning the league. That it should be the thing we're leading with, and that is what we're leading with. That is the most important aspect of the season. They got it done. They won the league, undefeated in league play, beating everyone that was thrown at them from the Lancaster-Lebanon League.
Yeah, and that is quite the accomplishment, like you said. And I believe for these guys, like you said, they had not had one. The guys on this team had not had
out last week.
Right, had not. They had a shared one in 2018. So when these seniors were sophomores, shared. Yes,
you're right, shared.
But they did not have a one that was sole possession, meaning basically clean slate through section 1, and to get that is no small task, especially with some of the things they were up against this year and just the crazy offseason and all those things. Like, it's quite an accomplishment for the players. It says a lot about the coaches and what they were able to do in terms of getting players prepared and having wave after wave after wave of guys at certain positions to kind of roll in there. That no small task, and congratulations.
Yeah, just remember what we were thinking and talking about back on September 20th when we were doing episode 4 or 5 or whatever it was, after the loss to Mifflin to start the season and all those injuries that had piled up.
Yeah, it wasn't like the loss to Mifflin was obviously not,
but they're also
great.
Expected to be good, and this isn't breaking news or spoiler. They're very good.
Right,
they're the number
good.
1 seed in 5A entering the playoffs unofficially, but yes, sort of also officially.
Right.
They will be the favorites in 5A.
Right.
So obviously that first game, while it was rough, it's not like it was necessarily a fluke based on the talent that they were putting out there.
But like you mentioned, the injuries coming out of that game really are what put, for me, the bigger question mark moving forward.
Felt like the season might be in jeopardy,
right?
In terms of achieving this goal,
right? Because in terms of the knowns, in terms of knowing what you're going to get, to be without Caleb, Troy, and Mason to go to Manheim Township the following week,
a team that had beaten you 3 out of the last 4 times.
Right. I just wasn't real sure how that was going to go, which is a nice way of putting it, honestly. But man, did they pull it together that week, and then each week, like you mentioned, that was the week where I didn't know what they were going to do, and they found a way, and then they had some opponents where they did what they should do for a few weeks, and then this week with Hempfield, they got the job done. Hempfield, and I'm sure we'll kind of talk about this, but we've mentioned it before. George.
Try that again. One more time.
George Ager is the coach there. He was on the Wilson staff a few years ago. Had been an assistant there the last few years. But kind of saw him briefly after the game, and he had his guys ready to go. They were playing, and you know what?
They were pumped up.
They were playing.
Excited.
They were playing like they were playing for a share of the Section 1 title, which they were. And that's, don't get me wrong. I am so glad the game on Friday turned out the way it did, but it was good to see Hempfield come out ready to go.
Right.
Well, we've talked a lot about them on our drives when we go there, and every time when they come up on the schedule. There have been years where they have been good. It's been kind of middle of the road for a while, but I was glad the game went the way it did in terms of the final outcome. But you could see that they were playing hard for their first year coach, and that's a good thing for him.
Hempfield has not had part of a league championship since 2005 when they shared it with Manheim Township, and they have not won the Lancaster-Lebanon League outright since 1994.
Wow.
So there was a lot of shared titles going on throughout the 90s. The teams they couldn't make a run through. 94 and 95 were both outright titles for Hempfield and Wilson, respectively. 99 was outright for Cedar Crest, and that was it. The rest of the 90s were all shared.
So when I was living in Columbia, I know someone he kicked at Hempfield. He was the kicker, and he went to kick at Youngstown State for Jim Tressel.
Oh, familiar name there.
Yeah, and his brother ended up playing football, at least for a little bit, up at West Point. He went to West Point, but he did not play football throughout. But so those were my visions of Hempfield growing up with some of the kids I knew. But it's they were ready to go, and we saw that at the start.
Oh yeah, they came out fired up, that's for sure. They forced a fumble on the opening drive.
Yep.
They cashed in on that with a field goal, which their kicker, not the last time we'll hear from him.
No.
Very, very strong. They then they held Wilson in check. The teams traded possessions back and forth, and Wilson got a nice punt a few possessions later. Thought we had pinned them, maybe flip field position, and then their stud running back, who was playing with a broken arm, huge cast, broke off a 62 or something yard
like that. Yep.
touchdown run, to put them up 9-0. Thankfully, Jeff Colson, the senior defensive tackle, busted through the front of the line and blocked the kick, no problem. I was at the other end zone photographing it, and I could see it happening, and I was like, oh, he's going to block it, before it even happened.
I don't know if there was a way that the kick could have gotten past Jeff
he
without.
could have almost taken it off the tee and ran with it, which would have been awesome.
Was lucky he didn't get kicked. He was that close to
Right. So, well, before we dive into the film and the stats from the game, let's do our housekeeping that we always do at the beginning of every show and take care of that before we move on to the Hempfield recap and our Game 7 preview, which we have a lot, obviously, to talk about. The situation developing with the future of the Wilson football 2020 season, and we will get to that shortly. But first, we want to thank our sponsors. The main ones coming from May's Sandwich Shop, my dad at the Sandwich Shop, and Small Player Big Play, the app available on your smartphones, both Apple and Google. You can check it out in those app stores, and it is a great way to watch and stream and keep up to date with youth athletics. A variety of teams in and around the southeastern, south central Pennsylvania area are using Small Player Big Play to broadcast not only their high school football games, but many other scholastic athletic events, including golf, tennis, volleyball. There may be some soccer in there, field hockey. So you got to get the app to check it out. Again, that's Small Player Big Play. Check them out on your Apple or Android device. We also want to make sure we thank the two anonymous sponsors of the show. We appreciate their donation and continued support of the program. If you would like to support us, you can do that not just via sponsorship, advertising, or donations. You can definitely visit the website, bulldoghour.com. There's a lot of information on there, both past, present, and future about the Wilson football program. And then Justin's favorite activity, spreading the word.
Yeah, like and share. That just helps get the word out.
We will have a live show next week. We will be on, I think, lucky number 13 next week on November 1st. We'll be into the month of November next time we broadcast. Same time and place, 8:30 here on Facebook, Periscope, YouTube, however you consume it, or after the fact as an audio-only podcast. Checking in on the schedule now. Well, there it is. Completed regular season schedule up to this point. 6 games on the docket. 6 games completed. 5-1 final regular season schedule up to this point with the loss in week 1 and then 5 straight victories. That's where we're at.
Yeah,
5-1.
Yep, there we go.
Which is great. Again, congratulations to the team and players on their Section 1 championship, 28th Lancaster Lebanon League title, 27 of them in Section 1. Remember, in 1999, we got the Section 2 crown, and 32 league titles overall when you combine it with the 3 Tri-County titles and the one of the original Berks Football League back in 1950. That was Wilson's first league championship. So 70 years apart from their first to their 32nd. And most of those league titles have happened in the last 40, 45 years. Yeah. So, 28 or whatever in the last 45 years or so, give or take. Not a bad ratio.
No, pretty good. Pretty good ratio there.
So let's talk about this. I posted this. I haven't really talked to Justin much about it, but future schedules were released.
Oh yeah, I saw
this week
you posted it.
Because of the Berks merger coming up with the LL League in 2022. Again, that's not next season. That's the following season.
But like you mentioned, next year's schedules could be a little hectic.
They released opponents, so we get to see who we're going to play. We already knew who the section teams were. We just didn't know when we were playing them or how things were going to work out. But I know people are interested in the future all the time, so we're going to quickly talk about this. And, the first 3 weeks will be non-league games. Who they will be, I do not know at this time. There is also a bye week, for everyone, I believe, in, is it like the top 2 or 3 sections?
I think it's the top 3 sections.
Top 3 sections.
Because the bottom 2 have more teams.
Yeah, okay, so every team for what would be a game 6, which in 2022 is Saturday, September 30th or October 1st. And in 2023 is Friday, September 29th or Saturday, September 30th. There are no league games that week. And I got this confirmed from Jeff Reinert of Lancaster newspaper, LancasterOnline.com. They are not mandating crossover games. They don't want anything to do with it anymore. So those are true buys, which means teams can schedule their own opponents. Now, because there are 3 sections that are all on buys in the same week, the hope is the teams will pick other LL teams to play to fulfill that.
There are other fairly local teams available that week,
right?
Is what you're saying.
So, is it possible Wilson plays Mifflin in the middle part of the schedule instead of the beginning? That's the question on the table. Or will Wilson find a different LL team, not in Section 1, to possibly play? Now, based on everything we've learned over the last few years, I doubt that would be Manheim Central.
Right. I don't think they want any part of us. And honestly, I don't think we want a part of it. Like, that was something that both sides aren't really fond of, that matchup.
And I don't believe there was mutual interest in Cocalico.
Correct. I believe that again.
So I don't know where else you go if it's not Mifflin. Could it be Exeter after, losing the game this year due to the coronavirus? Could Exeter make an appearance there if Mifflin is played in that game 2 spot that the teams kind of like because it's the long Labor Day weekend?
Right.
I could see that possibly happening because we are technically scheduled to play them next year. If both teams are okay with it, maybe they say, hey, let's do it again.
Going. Right. That would be easy, and
it's a Berks rivalry.
Well, and you're going to do it for 2 years, so each team would get a home game in 22, 23?
Yep, 22 and 2023.
Right. So, that's going to be a game that, again, knock on wood, we're talking way down the road here. Hopefully, you would expect large crowds at those games.
Right.
If not, there's larger problems.
Yeah.
But, you'd expect large crowds at both those games. So, that... I feel like that's something that the teams could sign on for, but I don't know. But that's definitely an intriguing option. And I believe, this is my personal take, I believe that's probably the most intriguing option, ruling out the Manheim Central continuing.
So just scheduling Exeter for that game 6.
Yeah, I feel like that makes the most sense I don't think Mifflin's going to move off that Labor Day. Or I don't mean that as their decision. I believe Wilson and Mifflin together will make the decision to keep that game on Labor Day weekend.
I believe the only options within the LL League that I can think of that would be maybe both be willing, possibly maybe Daniel Boone or Muhlenberg. Now, I know Muhlenberg's been struggling recently, but there's familiarity with the coaching staffs. Right. There's a connection there. Maybe it's something that they would pursue. I don't know how likely it is, but I don't know what other teams would be willing.
Right. Yeah, I don't really know. Most of the teams, to be honest, maybe a team like Warwick, which is not going to be Section 1, correct? They'll be Section 2.
They're Section 2.
Maybe they would want to be back up. I don't know. I'm just saying, in terms of teams that can compete, and that sounds terrible, but you're not going to get a team that doesn't think they have a shot, just to do it, just to fill the schedule. They're not going to do that.
Right.
So if you're looking at teams where it makes sense, Warwick has been on our schedule a lot. So I feel like they could be on there.
We also have to remember that when this Berks LL merger happens and the 37-team jumbo conference is formed, there also is pending realignment by classification.
You're right.
For 2022, which could see Warwick, Mifflin, Exeter all move to 6A. Now, I'm not saying that's going to happen, but Mifflin, I believe, was the largest 5A school when the new classifications came out prior to this season. So there's a chance that teams like the ones that I just mentioned could sneak into 6A, which makes it power ratings,
even better.
Which is just a lovely topic of conversation recently. Very,
don't forget your blood pressure.
Interesting. So we'll see how that plays out, but maybe Conestoga Valley, and they're a 5A team. Could there be any interest there? Cedar Cliff. I know that's not an LL team, but I'm thinking non-league in general. Of what other teams are you adding to the schedule?
Right.
Because
we'll have to wait.
Mifflin will be on there, whether it's week 2 or week 6. Not sure. Other than that, I don't know.
It'll be interesting to see if we look to add Suburban 1 schools back on. Or some extenuating circumstances for this year and next year for that. But after that, I don't know.
Right.
Because it's not as simple as it's not as simple as oh, hey, we want to we would like to play this team. Well, they have to be willing and able, you know, and that's not going to work in the middle. That would have to be up front.
Right. My guess is Mifflin's on there. Say maybe they get Exeter. That would be cool. You're left with 2 spots. In the past, for a long time now, for 6 years running, barring the coronavirus issues this year, Central Dauphin has reciprocated. Right. Could that continue? It's very possible that it could.
It's likely.
So then you're looking at really just one game if you find a crossover game that's not mandated, but you choose to play. Right. So someone like Springford or Perkiomen Valley,
especially in
Coatesville,
week 3,
Downingtown East, Downingtown West, North Penn. I'm just trying to throw out schools, down southeastern that could possibly be interested. Could they reach out to any Allentown schools like Parkland, Emmaus, Easton, Freedom, Liberty? Possibly. I don't know. We'll see. Right. That's all pending, but we got to get through 2020 and then also play 2021, which Justin already mentioned. That could get all messed up because we didn't get to play the first half of the 2-year series. We're supposed to host Central Dauphin next year. Right. Will that happen?
It would be very convenient if it was just like, oh, we're just going to continue on as if 2020 happened at normal. But I don't know that that'll happen. I don't know that it won't. But I don't know that.
The league schedule's set. The league schedule is not changing.
That's
Penn
the
Manor
easy
through
part.
Township is, I would expect, not to change.
That was one of the things I did notice on those schedules too. Sorry, not to jump around, but that Township is that last game.
Mm-hmm.
Then they're marketing.
They're banking on it. Yeah. It's the end of the crossover. Manheim Central is penciled in there. I don't see that changing. The ones that would possibly change are those non-league, those first 4. Again, I don't see Mifflin changing. They came to us this year. We're going to go to them. I would expect the Central Dauphin series to just pick up where it left off, and we would host them. We were supposed to host Exeter. Unfortunately, we didn't get that, but I think we'll probably go to Exeter. The biggest one is probably the Martin Luther King game.
Yeah.
We were supposed to go to them this year, and that didn't happen. Will we host them next year? I don't know. We'll have to see what happens.
Right, and to be honest, it could be a mess, not a scheduling mess, with teams here and there. I don't know. You get to the point where, are you going to maybe go somewhere where you would have had a home game, but you need to fill the schedule? I don't know. And those are all things that there's lots of time to work that out.
Right.
And lots of things that have to fall in place before then to even start worrying about that. But it is, I was kind of impressed that they have those schedules out so far in advance, but it's kind of nice to know.
Yep,
so.
It's nice to know, and hopefully non-league games will be filled in the next year or so, and we'll know what's going on. And honestly, I think a few of them will be easy. They just say to Mifflin, hey, do we want to do this Labor Day weekend? Yep, okay. Hey, Central Dauphin, do we want to keep playing? Yep, okay.
Right. I feel like both those games, I mean, they're tough. They're tough games. But the Wilson Mifflin game, I don't think is going anywhere.
I can't see it going anywhere.
The
hope was that it would be...
The Central Dauphin game, while a really tough first week opponent, both teams tend to like that test early on. And
yeah, I was just kind of curious if they would possibly consider moving that to week 3 and finding a different week 1 opponent. But again, the teams that Wilson has been interested in scheduling and are willing to play us are I don't know that it's going to be any quote easier.
Right.
Adding any of those Suburban 1 or whoever you want to throw out there, is that an easier test?
Right.
No.
And on a typical year, that, we always refer to that. You run that gauntlet at the beginning, and then that, for better or worse, it kind of gives you an idea of where you are by the time you hit the league schedule.
The strength of our non-league opponents last year catapulted us to the number 1 seed in the power ratings.
Right, yeah.
As a result, even though we lost head-to-head to Manheim Township.
Yep.
All right, let's watch the video from the win over Hempfield and go over some statistics. All right, remember, this is Huddle film, so it is notoriously... it skips around and incredibly random. So we're going to pick up here. Obviously, we're not seeing any of the Hempfield highlights. This is all Wilson, and we're going to get to see one of Caleb Brown's many runs on the evening. He set a Wilson record for rushing by a quarterback, 198 yards for him. And after Jack Wagner's field goal cut it to 9-3, Jack again with another great night, kicking 2 field goals. Caleb Brown takes this one 35 yards for the score, and that gave Wilson the lead after Wagner's successful extra point, 10-9 in the second quarter. We got another big run here by the senior quarterback, Caleb Brown. Again, he had a phenomenal evening. He threw a touchdown, had a rushing touchdown, and just a big night overall. Again, Wilson was up 13-9 here in the third quarter when Hempfield would line up for a 50-yard field goal by Bisco, and he nailed it. It would have been good from 55, maybe longer.
Wow.
So, yeah, great kicker there at Hempfield. So Wilson leads 13-12 before they pull out
the Eagles could use him.
They pull out a trick play. Coach Palm pulling this one out. Apparently is new this week. It's called Austin for tight end Corey Powers. So Brown gave it to Leonard.
That movie came out before any of these kids were born.
Right. But Brown gave it to Leonard, who gave it to Powers, who threw it to a wide open Sean Dendel, who made a phenomenal catch in the end zone for the score. And that
I love
gave
the
Wilson
use of the lefty rolling to the left. Like that was great.
20-12, before Wilson would get another one here on a beautifully thrown and caught ball from Brown to Flight.
Yeah, man, that was
he
narrow
threaded
window.
the needle for sure. That was impressive throw by Brown. And a great catch by TJ Flight in traffic. I could not believe that the ball made it there. And I couldn't believe that Flight caught it.
Right.
And he gets the touchdown, extra point good. Wilson's up 27-12, and that is what the final would be. Again, the Bulldogs winning the game and winning the Section 1 championship as a result. So all around strong effort. Started a little slow. Couldn't quite get things going. We said George Yeager had Hempfield hyped, and they showed it early, but Wilson weathered the storm and came out on top. And it was a good game, a fun night. The kids were super pumped. And, overall, Wilson, despite the slow start in the first quarter, maybe even the first half, Wilson pretty much controlled the game. The Bulldogs...
after the first few minutes, they like
even down 9-0, though, I don't know how concerned anyone really was.
I wasn't concerned that if we turned it on. I was just concerned of where we going to turn it on. That was the only thing. But
Wilson had 22 first down to Hempfield 7. Wilson rushed 50 times for 347 yards. Didn't quite hit the century mark in passing yards, only 87. But total yards for the two teams, Hempfield 42 plays for 224 yards. Wilson 66 plays for 434 yards.
Wow.
Yeah, impressive.
Wow.
Wilson only punted twice. They did lose the fumble early on. Here's another thing. Penalties.
Yeah.
8 penalties for 97 yards. Not great.
No.
But I think many people would say that wasn't the A-team of officiating. There were very...
No, we had some that were absolutely got it.
The horse collar one gets me every time.
Yeah. Run up the middle. Got called for a horse collar at the line of scrimmage when you're running into the guy.
When you're tackling him.
I don't really know how that happens.
So wasn't ideal. One of the refs was super flag happy and no one called him on it, but it's fine. Weathered the storm, persevered, moved on. Wilson was 6 of 12 on third down, so hitting 50% of the third down chances, and they didn't allow Hempfield to convert on third down. 0 for 10.
Wow.
Now, Hempfield got one score inside the red zone. Wilson did as well, but Wilson did fail on one of their red zone attempts. And that's one of the first times that happened this year. Wilson had been very, very good inside the red zone. Didn't connect on all of them this time.
Was that the end of the game when we took
it might have been. Yeah, it might have been. Took a knee instead of scoring
again. The 5. So.
Right. So that one you can't even put on really on them. It was by choice. Looking at individual statistics for the game against Hempfield, again, rushing was the name of the game for the Bulldogs. Caleb Brown and Mason Leonard both carried the ball 15 times. Caleb 198 yards and a touchdown with the long of 35.
Man, he looked fast. When he got outside, he looked fast.
Yeah,
and he was running hard, too.
The Hempfield coaches were screaming about quarterback run and contain and watch the sweep, and he's keeping it. And they were going nuts because Caleb was beating them and continued to beat them most of the night. Mason gained 79 yards on his 15 carries, and we saw Goose carry 8 times for 40 yards, Jaden 10 for 38. Caleb just hair short of 200 rushing yards, which is quite the feat. Caleb was 8 of 15 for 66 yards and a touchdown passing, and then we got to see former quarterback Corey Powers throw the touchdown of 21 yards to TJ Flight, who also had a second reception for 5 yards, totaling 32 in all. Powers had 2 catches for 19 yards, and Sean Dennell had a 21-yard touchdown from Powers.
That was a really nice catch.
It was really nice. It was a great play call. It was perfectly executed.
Your pictures were perfect on that too.
And I told you, as it was happening, and I'm taking the photos live, I wasn't sure he was in.
Yeah, so I wasn't either.
I wasn't convinced.
That's really hard for me to see from up
that
there.
The ref was going to call it a touchdown, and then when he did, I was obviously excited. And then I looked at my pictures. I was like, "Oh yeah, Dendel made the catch. He was in. It was fine. No issues whatsoever." So, great play call, great execution, great throw, great catch.
So that's one where looking at the pictures afterwards showed you that he was in the end zone.
Yes,
this weekend.
He was in the end zone. Yeah. Oh boy, let's not go there. Defensively, Corey Powers once again leading the way. He had 4 total tackles, 2 of them for loss, 1 of them being a sack. Ethan Capitano, homecoming king, 3.5 tackles, 1.5 for loss. He had a breakup as well. John Ramsey, Mason Leonard, Colby Williamson, Jeff Colson also contributing 3 tackles. Most of them had 1 for loss.
Jeff had the block kick.
Mason had an interception. Jeff had the block kick. Colby Williamson with 2 sacks. Ramsey with a sack. And the coaches after the game, specifically defensively, were talking about how this may be one of their better pass rushing groups that they've had. So a lot of high praise for them and their motor.
They could not stop Cappy and Colby off the edge. I say off the edge of like that 3-man front. Like they just put them wide and they just flying around the edge.
Yeah, good stuff. Good stuff from them. Good all around, solid performance. Got that victory. Love it all the way. So, who's our player of the game? I very much thought we could give it to Corey Powers. I really wanted to with his contributions on defense and the passing touchdown. But when you have someone rush for almost 200 yards
and set a record,
you have to give him the nod. So, senior quarterback Caleb Brown is our player of the game for the win over Hempfield. Again, 198 rushing yards, which is a record for a Wilson quarterback. And he just he looked good with his feet. He still threw in a passing touchdown for good measure.
Great,
an incredible passing
not
touchdown
like
for good measure.
He threw it to somebody who ran 80 yards, or like he threw it to the guy who's like fielding it like a punt. No, it was probably the tightest window he threw into all night. That was a heck of a pass.
It really, really was. So congratulations to Caleb and the Wilson players and coaching staff for not just the victory, but again, the league championship.
Yeah.
Another trophy coming to West Lawn.
Yeah.
You love to see it.
I heard the kids yelling about sweatshirts.
Well, of course, Coach Bender was ready.
Oh, he
ordering site was out immediately, ready to roll. So I look forward to adding that shirt to the collection and listing all of Wilson's Lancaster Lebanon championships on the back. So good stuff all around for sure. All right, so what's next? What's next? That's a great question. It's a question we've been asking for the last 2 weeks now. What is next? Well, the way it looks now, what is next will be a Game 7 for the Bulldogs, and that will mean a regular season finale as scheduled, well, sort of as scheduled. The crossover game against Manheim Central is what Wilson is looking at most likely, and that is as a result of the power ratings not coming out in Wilson's favor after, in the 11th hour, Harrisburg scheduled a 4th game at State College tomorrow evening at 4 o'clock. Getting that 4th game allows Harrisburg to be eligible for the playoffs, and in this COVID truncated season, District 3, 6A, and most of District 3 is only taking 4 teams to the playoff instead of 8 or more as a result of the shortened season. District 3 had to do that in order to get their district champions into the state playoffs. That is why this happened. Everything's been shortened, and that is the way things ended up this year. So District 3, 6A, and a few below them are only taking the top 4. And as it stands now, Wilson is on the outside looking in at the 5th spot. So that means Wilson will travel to Ratu Stadium Friday, October 30th, to take on Manheim Central. And it's not, at least on paper, what we're seeing in front of us, the Manheim Central team that we're used to.
Is not the one you've come to know over the last 2 or 3 decades.
Yeah, they're struggling. This is
3 decades.
Their worst team in like 45 years, at least statistically, record-wise.
Yeah.
And things just aren't going their way for Coach Hahn and the Barons. Last year, they ran through Section 2, won that title. They were 9-3 overall.
Yes, they're getting blown apart like a couple weeks in a row. And then, they went into Section 2, and we're like, I wonder what they're going to do. And they ran through Section 2.
Yeah, including beating Cocalico,
right,
who ended up
winning
the district championship.
And I think going to the state title.
No, I don't think they went to the state title.
Oh,
okay.
I
think they lost in the semis.
Okay, yeah.
But, I mean, still, nothing to sneeze at, for sure.
Right.
So, yeah, Manheim Central is the game this Friday. Again, it'll be, I'm sure it's limited or no spectators.
Right.
It will not be open to the general public. Manheim Central started the season with a big win over Cedar Crest, 41-6.
Right.
Then they lost to Cocalico by double digits. They fell,
which was a surprise.
Yeah, by 16, 35-19.
Cocalico, again, like we said, they're nothing to.
No, we saw them in the scrimmage.
Right.
They looked very good.
Right.
Then they went to Warwick, who for the first time last year beat them.
Right, and it's not
in a long time.
Not necessarily the place you want to go to try and get right.
Right.
Anymore. It used to be, but it's not anymore.
They go to Lidditz and they get beat up, kind of like what we did to them at Gursky last year. That's what happened in Lidditz against Warwick this year. They lost 45-14. So now you're like, oh boy, losing to Cocalico and Warwick, that's fine. They're 1-2. They'll get right. They'll win the next 3 weeks.
Right.
And if we play them, it'll be a game. Well, then they lose to Solanco at home by a touchdown, 42-35.
That turned some heads, but again, Solanco was doing all right, and still a little surprising.
At the time, they were in the running for the Section 2 championship. That just cemented that fact. Then they host Conestoga Valley last Friday.
But at that point, what were they? 1-3,
yeah,
and we were like,
3.
they're going to finish 3-3.
Right.
So,
and then we find out after we beat Cedar Crest that Manheim Central lost to Conestoga Valley.
Yeah.
By almost the same score as they lost to Solanco. 35-41 again at Manheim Central on their own turf. So now you're really scratching your head. 4-game losing streak for the Barons, just unheard of.
Right.
Unheard of for them. Now they got right this week at Elizabethtown, destroying them 51-14 on the road. But now they will get to welcome us in to the stadium, most likely, this Friday, October 30th, 7 o'clock kickoff. They do have another game scheduled for November 13th, so Manheim Central is currently open November 6th.
I know there's some other LL teams that may be looking to add them as well, but that's not official right now. But I know some teams are there. There are other LL teams that are looking to continue their seasons with non-district playoff games. So
right.
They may add some more there.
So, what's happening in Manheim right now? Who are the key players? They have a new quarterback. Right. Evan Simon has moved on. He's off playing college football at Rutgers, I believe. Their starting quarterback is Judd Novak, who can sling it. He's a very good passer. Owen Pappas is back at wide receiver and defensive back, and they also have a couple specialists back. But that was it. Right. Graduation really took it out of Manheim Central, and
for the second year in a row.
Right. It wasn't their best team last year, but with a Division I recruited quarterback, they eventually got right once they settled in, got to play those Section 2 teams, and they started to get rolling. Actually, the wake-up call was getting beat up by us. Mm-hmm. That is when they turned things around, and they proceeded to win, I think, the next 6 games or something like that. They got hit so hard by Graduation, losing 20 full-time starters. They just haven't had it this year. They didn't have the mojo. Not a lot has changed other than the players. The coaching staff is there. The offense and defense is the same.
Right.
They're running the spread offense. And like I said, Novak can throw it, but he hasn't always had time, and they haven't developed a strong running game, which is usually something that really complements them, especially when Evan Simon's there. Yeah, everyone knew he could throw it, but they could also run the ball.
They're always so balanced. They have been able to throw it. They've had a few Division I quarterbacks go through that program, but they've always been able to run the ball, at least respectably as well, and they haven't had that this year.
Right. So that's what's on deck for Wilson to round up the truncated, abbreviated COVID-19 2020 regular season schedule. And I say the original schedule because there's an opportunity to add games should the program choose to do so. I do not know if that is going to happen. We've sort of mentioned it to a few people, but I believe they were all waiting to see what happened with the power ratings to figure out should they make the playoffs. It sounded like maybe that was going to be it. If they made the playoffs, they play a game or two or however long it takes, and that would be it. Now with the way things are looking and playoffs aren't happening, they have the potential to add up to 3 games because you can play 10 games, not counting playoffs. So
you can play through November, correct?
They can play up to Thanksgiving Saturday.
Right.
The Saturday of Thanksgiving, like 2 days after Thanksgiving. I would think if they're going to do that, they would play 1, 2, or 3 in a row, which would be November 6th, 13th, and 20th, if Wilson would be adding anything. And obviously, as soon as I hear, I will let everyone know.
Right. Either way.
But Wilson has the potential to improve to 6-1 with a victory over Manheim Central this Friday. That would guarantee a winning record for, putting myself on the spot here because I don't remember exactly how many years it is for the winning. I do know that the win over Hempfield clinched a 57th consecutive non-losing season.
Wow.
Because they can only play 4 more games, and you lose all 4, you're 5-5.
Right.
So they're a minimum non-losing for sure. Right. Should they beat Manheim Central this Friday, they're guaranteeing themselves a 45th straight winning season. So a lot on the line still. Even if the playoff dream isn't going to happen, there's a lot riding just playing for pride and playing for fun. And then it would be fun to see them add at least 1 more game. Maybe they can't find 3 or, they don't want to play 3.
Right, like we kind of mentioned before, it's not as simple as, we'd like to play so-and-so. Like
it takes 2 to tango.
Yep.
And Wilson can't always find that second partner. So we'll see what happens. It would be nice to maybe add at least 1. If they can't get 2 or 3, so be it. But play Manheim Central, and then maybe someone else is sitting there for the 6th or 13th of November. I've had people multiple times say they should play on Thanksgiving. I'm like, yeah, okay, that'd be cool, but like people can't be there. Right. It could be different, like if you could do that a different year,
right? When
people could be there to watch,
right?
Especially if it would snow, like a few years ago.
Yeah.
But yeah, Thanksgiving football. I mean, Thanksgiving and football goes hand in hand, and I've never seen Wilson. I've seen them practice on Thanksgiving, but never play on Thanksgiving. Right. So I feel like that is a massive long shot. Right. But I think there's a good chance that maybe they add a game, maybe 2. That would be fun. But we'll see what happens. I'm sure Coach Doms and Drew will be working the phones and the emails to see if anyone is willing to play the Bulldogs on Friday the 6th to get an 8th game in for Wilson, and we'll go from there. So, well, what do you want to say about the power ratings, Justin? Where do we want to go with this?
I mean, it stinks. We talked about it. We talk about this all the time about how, and we probably talked about it last week when it used to be 4 classifications, and we talk about how 1 loss could keep you out, and that's pretty much what is going to happen this year. There are other circumstances that make it a little, make it even harder to swallow this year. But that's kind of it. Like sitting in the position where Wilson is right now, like part of me is like, man, I wish we kind of would have done what District 11 did and just keep our own playoffs but not just that's it. Now, Now, that's easy for me to say in this position.
Right, in hindsight,
right.
Sure.
If we were one of those 4, I'd be like, what the heck, like, I don't know that that's what I would think, but I would probably think like, oh man, what if, if you won that district title, you'd always kind of be wondering, well, what if we could have won one more, you know what I mean? But
right.
So in the position we're in right now, I kind of think that I would be like, oh man, it would have been nice if they would have just taken 8 and just, that's the way it goes. There's lots of what ifs. Had a bunch of people asking me questions all week, and things about like, what about if we win the Hempfield game by a lot? And I'm like, doesn't matter.
Point scored.
But I just talked about, I was like, look, all you can do is go out and play the Hempfield game and win, because if you don't win, it doesn't matter.
Right. Yeah. Everything was riding on that.
Right.
So you didn't have a chance.
Right. So I mean, it stinks. There's not really a whole lot. There are a number of issues, not just alone in 6A that have come up, where teams just kind of were doing what was in their best interest. Maybe
that's what you kind of have to
maybe towing the line a little bit. And again, I'm talking beyond 6A, because I don't know. It's tough.
I know what you're talking about. You're talking about 2A. You're talking about Camp Hill, not
which directly ties into another Berks County school, 3A.
Camp Hill not rescheduling their game against Middletown,
right,
which negatively impact Wyomissing.
Right.
Well, I guess maybe negatively impact
right,
Middletown and Wyomissing.
But it left a question mark there, because if Middletown plays that game, Middletown wins that game,
most likely.
And so I don't know that maybe Middletown finishes above Wyo then anyway.
Well, but yeah, if they're winning, I would assume they probably would.
Right. But because Middletown because Camp Hill chose not to reschedule that game, and chose not to, they had the opportunity to and chose not to. That leaves Columbia out.
It's right. It's less of an impact on Wyomissing, though it would have been more definitive than what happened. Right. Because Wyomissing lost the game and couldn't find an opponent, which also sucks for them.
Right.
But
Middletown was available that weekend as well, because I think that was the weekend they should have made up the Camp Hill game, and Camp Hill chose not to. That I don't know that for sure, but I think that's how the puzzle pieces go together.
But Camp Hill choosing not to make up that game, which they probably lose, means that a team that played all 6 of their games, won 4 of them, and was in line to make the playoffs. Make the district championship game, because they only take the top 2.
Right, you only take 2 at 2A.
So they don't get out because a team essentially chose to manipulate the power ratings, which we were told shows a huge lack of integrity. Right? We heard a lot about that recently, which is laughable. I have a lot to say about this, but I'm not going to.
Right.
But
no, you won't.
I won't say it on
until you click the
end.
Right. We talk about this.
There's a massive amount of hypocrisy and double standards going on, and the only people you can point out is District 3. They are absolutely to blame for all of this.
That is where it goes. 100%. It is not in.
Everyone sitting in the District 3 offices in mid-Penn country can get off their high horse and drop the elitism and just stop, and instead of pointing fingers at the other schools, trying to figure out what to do in the best interest of their student athletes and figure out how they could have, stepped up and decided to do something about it.
Right.
And don't give me this is unprecedented times. Yeah, and we've known about it for how long now?
And I also
knew about it back in August.
I also look at, and this goes, and I think this is going to get overlooked a lot until next weekend, when I think it's going to be in everybody's scope, is that the York League chose not to do what the LL League did and move it so that their premier matchup happens.
But the toughest thing for them is they didn't have any non-league games to move around.
It's fair enough.
There was no crossover game. So as much as I'm incredibly disappointed that William Penn and Central York didn't play, it wasn't a manipulation. It just was the way the schedule broke. Yeah. And as disappointed as I am that they didn't play,
and that is a Week 10 matchup usually. Did you say
it
that?
is.
Yes. So that is a last week matchup.
And this is the first year, at least recently, that they're both 6A.
Right.
William Penn had been 5A.
Right.
So
I guess what skews me there is I do not anticipate William Penn winning their first game. I also do not anticipate Central York winning their first game.
They're an interesting team.
But like I don't know. I'm really intrigued by that. But I take either of the mid-Penn teams over in terms of who I think would win over.
There's
William
a history
Penn.
there. Like we know what we're getting from Harrisburg.
Right, it's not just random.
That's the thing. We also know what historically we've been getting from the York teams,
right?
And it's nothing.
Right
now, Central York looks like a beast, but again, we've seen
they've had it before.
Go undefeated in the York League and then make the playoffs and do nothing.
Right.
Like, wasn't it last year or the year before that was the first like York League in 5 or 6A or the highest classification?
But wasn't it because
8 years?
Right, but I think it was because 2 York teams played each other. Like I'm serious. I think 2 York teams were scheduled against each other, so it was guaranteed to end.
So it's just a mess. It's unfortunate, and there are obviously extenuating circumstances all surrounding COVID.
Right.
But there could have been things done to make it much more clear, and then to come out when we attempt to do something that other teams are doing.
Right. That bothers me a little bit. I don't. There are things that I look at like. Yes, I don't like, and obviously I'm viewing this through my red colored glasses. But I look at it as well. Flashback a week ago, Wilson coaches and everything were looking to do everything they could to put our team in the best position possible to continue the season. And I think that's what they should do. That's part of what they should do. They should be looking out for the best interest of their student athletes. And to some degree, I feel like that's what other schools are doing too. Like the staffs, the coaching staffs and things like that. I don't know. Not necessarily everyone. So like while I get disappointed that it's happening that way, I also am like, I don't know that I can be that upset. Cause like, I try to think like, what if we were in that situation and we were trying to schedule someone up to the last minute? However, that being said, like we didn't. And it's not that situation, and I don't know, it's tough. We brought this up earlier in our conversations, and it's not unique to this week or even this situation, but the people who lose out are student athletes based on lack of planning and foresight from adults in charge, like adults who are in charge.
I think the worst thing is that for now 3 weeks they sat back and did nothing. And they could have stepped in immediately and said, "Whoa, you can't do that." But they let people do it, and then things changed abruptly, and they decided to pull out rules that don't exist in any written form.
That's where it is. If you're gonna wipe your hands of it a month ago, then you should wipe your hands of it now and be like, "Hey, do what you got to do." If that's your attitude a month ago, that should be your attitude now. To be honest, I think they wrongly thought that it wasn't going to be an issue. I think they either thought 2 York teams won't go undefeated, or Harrisburg won't get a 4th game,
or Harrisburg won't be playing at all. Is probably what they thought.
Right.
And they also probably thought, well, Harrisburg doesn't have enough time to play the games because that's what everyone thought.
Right.
That's what everyone thought.
Right.
And then it started to come out, oh, well, they're going to play on Tuesdays.
Right.
What? What are you talking about?
Right. After playing on Saturday.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. I do sit back and look at just from a bigger picture thing, and this gets super cliche, but like sometimes life sucks, and
well, life's not fair. That's the cliche.
And the only thing I can say is make the most of what you got. And Wilson did that this year. Like they went undefeated in the league, like we talked about, nothing to hang your head about. At this point, there's nothing they could do, and there's nothing you can change. For me personally, and I cannot speak to I wasn't on the field playing the game that week 1. But if that had come down to like a single possession type of game, for me, it's a harder pill to swallow.
Right.
Like even harder, I should say. Because I don't look back at that game and think, what if?
Right.
There were no what ifs about that game to me. Whereas like the game we had a few years ago where we were down like 21-0 and then like stormed back and like looked like was that 2017?
2017, yeah.
Like a loss like that would
that would haunt you.
Right. And like I said, losing to Mifflin, losing in that way to Mifflin, all that stuff being left out now, like all those things are tough. But if it was like that, oof.
Yeah. Well,
but I don't really know. Like
the last thing I want to say,
there's lots of things I just don't know what to think about it because I can't really wrap my head around all the pieces, I guess.
The last thing I want to say before we go is I don't want it to be conflated or confused or think that we blame, like, I don't blame this on Harrisburg.
No,
they were doing what they could do. Like District 3 didn't tell them not to do it.
Right. And that team and coaches
and they absolutely are one of the top 4 teams in District 3 6A.
Right.
Like that is not debatable.
Right. That team and coaches, they did not make the decisions that they were living under the decisions that other people made for them and put them in a bad spot from both sides. And then as things changed, it changed more than a lot of those people who made those decisions thought it would, I think.
The school board ruining it for them.
Right.
Then they came to their senses and allowed it to proceed. But then District 3 had no answer for what would happen if a team joined halfway through the season.
Which I can't believe that like they didn't even think of that when the biggest
and that vote wasn't like all of a sudden, like there were days but like you knew going ahead. Right. How was there not anyone being like, we need to make sure that we have all these, all the rules and guidelines figured out so we can know, like, are they going to be eligible?
Right. And that's where it shifts back the District 3 decision makers, in my opinion. Like, but yeah, sorry, not to cut you off.
No, they dropped the ball and they hid behind it, and until they basically put it in our hands because we were the ones that knew we were going to get screwed.
Right.
So we decided to do something which was add a game because they had already said you can play up to 10 games.
Right.
But then they decided to then throw a flag and say, well, you can't do that. That's manipulation, and that shows lack of integrity.
Right. Well, and that brings it circle around. Then how is what other schools are doing, and not Harrisburg. Harrisburg's trying to get their games in.
Not playing a game because they knew it would negatively impact their power ratings, which was the whole integrity comment, anyways, saying that we've had this in for a few years because people were manipulating.
Right, which is someone ratings. Someone brought that up to us the other night, saying like they threw this term out there a few years ago when somebody was trying to do similar things in terms of manipulate. Well, okay, so.
How is not playing a game?
To me, that makes it kind of worse that it's not clear cut because
it's not in writing because it doesn't exist.
Right, because if they find out on Tuesday morning about a Tuesday afternoon game, for example, which doesn't happen nowadays, but like if that's what they did and they're like, wait, what's going on? Okay, like I can understand how you weren't prepared for that, but like we knew about these things, like, and they chose not to make clear cut decisions on them until after the fact. They were very responsive, not proactive.
Yeah.
And
it's
frustrating.
Oh gosh, yeah. To finish my final thought, and this is me personally, because I don't ever want anyone at any other school to think that I'm attacking them. I am simply defending Wilson because I'm here to promote my student athletes, the ones that I coached and the ones that I see on Friday nights. Now, we're not high school coaches, but we stay connected to the program pretty closely, and I'm looking out for their best interests, not yours. It's not my job to promote your school or feel sorry for your school. That's not me. I'm a Wilson guy. So I will be out there promoting and defending them unless it's not something that I see fit to do. But in this situation, I think District 3 looks terrible. They look awful. Whether they want to admit it or not, and based on their quotes, they don't think so. Which is ridiculous.
Well, and they're in a spot where they can take their ball and leave. Like what's going to happen?
There's no accountability there. they're nothing. They're nothing.
Right.
So I look forward to the Zoom call tomorrow. So, all right. Anything else to add before we finish this?
Just to circle back to the beginning of the show. I think this team has really kind of, they showed a lot to me, honestly, that I said I wasn't sure what we were going to get after week one, for lots of reasons that we kind of covered in the show tonight. And so, like, to come out and have the season to this point that they've had is something to hold your head high about. And they did what they could do. And so that from the start, this is going to be a crazy season, right? Like, we didn't know. There are moments where we didn't know if we were going to have a season, to having a season, and then, so, it's while it's not necessarily what anyone had envisioned, you make the best with what you've got, and there's a lot to be said for that. And with that being said, you have the chance, as of right now, to go out at least one more time, maybe only one more time, and play high school football. And
you're giving another game.
Right. And man, I know a lot of people, not necessarily this year, but also this year, who would give anything for one more game, and so
for once you can guarantee without a doubt, because there may be no next week, that you can finish the season with a win.
I thought of that.
Has no Wilson team that has made the playoffs can say that.
Right.
Because Wilson hasn't finished the season with a victory in the biggest game.
You could make an argument, depending on how things go, that, well,
at least not recently. Since
I was going to say, in the playoff era, you could be the best Wilson team to ever end their season on a win. Right. There's a bit of a caveat, but
a little bit we'll leave that out there. But
I almost said the best Wilson team ever, and then I was like, wait a minute. There were times where there weren't playoffs, and I might have some people.
Oh, you have you would get it. Yes, you would receive comments and messages immediately.
Actually, to be fair,
to say in the playoff era,
you probably would.
That's true. I might have to take you to task. So, all right. Before we wrap up for good, let's take a listen to one more advertisement from Small Player Big Play.
Introducing Small Player Big Play app, the all-sports social media app for young athletes. Live stream events for your friends and family who can't be there. At home or at work, they can watch your streaming on their phones or on TV by using a mirroring device or AirPlay 2. Download the app from the App Store or Google Play and create an account using a valid email address. That's it. Now you can find friends, join groups, or make new ones. You can upload and watch your own content for free. Watch YouTube uploads for free. Even more streaming options are available with our subscription plans and in-app purchases. Download the app and start sharing with the world your passion for sports today.
All right. Thanks again to May's Sandwich Shop and Small Player Big Play for sponsoring the show. Well, I think that's it. That concludes episode 12 of the Bulldog Hour 6th season. Again, we will be back next Sunday, November 1st, for episode 13, where we will recap what will most likely be a game against Manheim Central. And by then, I would think we would probably know if the Wilson season will continue with a game or two in November.
As news about that comes out, I'm sure you can tune into the social media aspects, and you will keep everyone up to date there.
Absolutely. So, congratulations once again to the players and the coaches for
Section 1 champs,
winning the Lancaster Lebanon League Section 1, an outright title. Absolutely huge accomplishment, and nothing that you should be upset about. Things didn't go our way, and that is no fault of anyone on the team in any capacity. And that's where we're going to leave it for now. So thanks for joining us. Until next time, remember, go Bulldogs.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Bulldog Hour. Want more Wilson football? Follow the show on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Subscribe to the podcast on iTunes and SoundCloud, or visit www.bulldoghour.com. The Bulldog Hour is a featured program on jmnjrradio.com.